Boy,
Yeah.
howdy. There was some,
Another week.
yeah, there was some stuff. Some stuff happened. It was pretty wild.
I don't know. See, I mean, Thanksgiving alone,
Yeah.
pretty nuts.
Uh, the first two games surprisingly competitive. Surprisingly
Yeah,
competitive.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't as surprised with the Bears and Lions. I kind of expected that to be back and forth.
That was what I expected the Bears to eventually pull away in. And honestly, I'm kind of feel bad the Lions lost because that was probably
Same.
their best shot right there. I mean, they had
Yeah,
Goff back. It is what it is though. They couldn't close out
yeah.
that one. I don't know if they will.
I know. I mean, Andy Dalton did just enough.
Yeah.
I figured if they somehow got Fields, like, I figured the Bears would maybe run away with it, but that was a close game. It was a good game. Raiders Cowboys was, I feel, closer.
That one surprised
than
me.
Yeah. Well, less surprised when you notice that CD Lamb came out early, or he didn't play.
Yeah.
Michael Gallup now is your number one receiver, and really, as long as they took care of Schultz. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like at the same time they still had Gallup, Schultz, Zeke, and Pollard.
Yeah. To me, that feels like part of the weakness. That's part of the weaknesses of the team, at least to me. That comes down to the coaching and utilizing your playmakers the best you can, at least who you have left. Because you could have easily put Pollard and Elliott on the field at the same time. You could spread out Pollard, into the slot. Why not Gallup? You got Schultz, like all your weapons out there. But they didn't even do that.
Yeah. Well, and also even their defense, which their defense has normally been like their
Yeah.
strength. I don't think they had as many injuries on the defensive side. So that's what really surprised me is, I was not expecting their defense to give up that many points to the Raiders, especially.
I mean, yeah. To me, Carr's better than people give credit to.
Oh, yeah.
With Jacobson, looks like they have the run game going. And yeah, even though they don't have Ruggs anymore, Renfro, and then they signed Deshaun Jackson.
Who I feel like he had at least a couple big plays, I think.
Oh, yeah. One big, I want to say it was a 70-yard touchdown run in the first half. I've never seen that one. You went 3 catches, 102, and a touchdown. And then Zay Jones woke up.
Well, and I think that's what really did is Jones finally started getting going again because he's been struggling this year. So
yeah, which sucks for that waiver wire pickup that people might have done with Bryan Edwards.
Yeah,
but it is what it is. Now you can pick up Zay Jones if you want to play that character.
Want to take a risk?
Yeah, I mean Deshaun Jackson's available in most places too.
Yeah. This was another one that I thought was interesting, just because I think the Bills needed that.
Yeah,
they needed that.
They got the Saints in the best position, just without Ingram and without Kamara.
Yeah.
So you're completely relying on Simeon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Especially.
I was gonna say especially because the Bills were still missing apparently their right tackle and star Ukulele. So they have both those going back, and I think that was hurting them on both sides of the line, missing those guys from COVID. So I imagine they're really happy to get that going into their next game.
Yeah, I mean, what still screamed at me though too is they don't have a run game.
Yeah,
they committed to it more this time. It's like a little over.
Well, and Breida did some stuff. Like he had some plays, but it's still like, that's what's like. I don't understand how they can have 3 pretty solid running backs, but none of them ever seem to do much beyond being middling. Even in games when you're like, okay, they should be running all over. Like,
So, to me, even if I think back, like, since the head coach has been there, Frank Gore, I think, was his most productive running back. And I think it comes down to he's got these speed backs who are great catching out backfield, but he sends them through the A gap. He puts them up the middle. There's only very few times he puts them out in space.
I mean, that's what's funny is like they have Zach Moss, who, when they actually have committed to the run, he's shown like he's done okay. It's just they either do that with their speed backs, and then, or they just try to have Moss and those guys out in space, and it's just, I don't know. They just never really seem to go like, okay, let's actually do this. They always still seem to try to rely on Allen more as a runner, which,
yeah,
yes, that's something he brings, but it's still one of those. You need that run game to really get pressure off of Allen in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints did decent, but I'm sure that's how all the other teams beat them, especially like Jacksonville. Contain Allen, sack him. Like, that's all you have to do.
Yep.
I know it's easier said than done, but...
Except for the last few games, it's been pretty easy, apparently. So, I'm curious to see if they can turn it around, especially because they got a pretty big matchup coming up. Which,
yeah.
Speaking of big division matchups, Bengals, man.
I feel like... so I have a feeling Bengals are good, but I think the Steelers are just kind of that bad right now. Like,
yeah,
defense isn't showing up. That's the big one. It's the defense isn't keeping them in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't help when Ben throws 2 interceptions, but
they've been able to overcome that in the past. It's the defense isn't there, and also the run game didn't get going.
Yeah,
because
that's
like even
one.
with the 2 interceptions, he still threw a TD and for 263, which isn't bad. But when you have no run game to pair with that, you're not going to overcome those 2 turnovers.
Yeah, and that does feel like a constant issue that the Steelers' offense have had. Is they stop the run game, they are not as dynamic as they normally are. So that does make sense to me. And then on the opposite, the Bengals have been banging it up with the run game. You know, Mixon 165 and 2 touchdowns. Like,
monster game.
Yeah, once they take that pressure off Burrow, because they were in every game that all the pressure was on Burrow when he was throwing 40 attempts, but they've locked down this game with the run game.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, I think I kind of brought this up was like the Bengals don't need Jamar Chase to go off, even though that's who Burrow has a rapport. Like, I mean, Higgins had hell of a game.
Yep.
Like 6 for 114. Any team would take that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're stacked as far as receiving core goes.
Yeah.
You have 3 very solid receivers and a pretty solid tight end in Uzomah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Paired that with a really strong run game. It's like, and that's what I think is really interesting. Is it Burrow's elevating these players, or is it Burrow's just lucky that they have so many really solid skill players that it's able to help him transition in better?
Like, I don't know. I feel like that's a good question. And I do feel as though if you took any middling quarterback, threw him in the same system, same situation, like just plug out Sage or Burrow with even Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
I think the results would
probably
be the same.
Ball out a few times.
Yeah.
That's fair. Because, I mean, with those... Yeah, like... between those 3, one of them just throw the ball, one of those 3 is going to catch it, and then Joe Mixon can go off. So...
Yeah.
What's going to be really interesting is like, wow, look at the schedule. The Bengals have... I don't know if they have a hard remaining schedule or not.
Let's see.
Just because everything's been so up and down.
Yeah, the Chargers will be interesting. Playing the Niners, Ravens, Potentially the Browns, because I'm kind of curious if they play a better defense, because that Steeler defense is banged up.
Yeah.
So their front line's missing. Like, they're missing Watt for one.
Mm.
If that would change anything.
I mean,
So-
the last time they played the Browns, they got destroyed. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah. They're definitely a hot and cold team.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the NFL right now.
Week to week.
Yeah.
And speaking week to week,
Poor Panthers.
Dolphins,
man.
Panthers.
Poor
Yeah.
Panthers.
You can't break. Newton, 2 interceptions, and then you lose McCaffrey for the rest of the season.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's basically their season right there.
Yeah, and then Walker threw an interception himself too. So does that make Darnold look better?
That's a good question because, like, everyone's like, "Oh, Newton's starting to play well," but then he had this game where it's like, did he though? Like 5 for 21, 5 of 21 for 92 yards and 2 interceptions is.
I feel like that's the drawback on anyone who likes Cam or wants Cam for their team, is that he's still playing the same Cam that he was probably even back to his rookie season, slinging it, using his legs. He hasn't really elevated his game. He's kind of just stayed the same, which is great. Great level.
Yeah.
But he's going to do this. He's going to make mistakes.
Well, it's also that worked when he was young and healthy and was able to make those runs. It's the same thing with Wilson.
I
Where,
need that extra step.
yeah, when he was fast enough, he could do that. But not to get too far ahead, I saw an interesting stat that in Wilson's 10-year career, he has already been sacked almost as many times as Breeze was over his 20-year career. So you figure that's really going to start catching up to you when you get sacked that many times and have 5,000 rushing yards. And it's same with like Cam. He's that style of QB. Like when he's young and healthy, he's great. But once he starts to get that wear and tear,
yeah. And I mean, the Dolphins, they could sneak in here.
Yeah.
They're playing well. They haven't asked too much of Tua, but he's playing really well for a second year. But they got the Giants, the Jets, the Saints, which could go either way. The Dolphins defense, I think, will keep them in the game. Titans, and then they end the season with the Patriots, which that might decide a little something.
Well, that's what I think is. Who thought that the Patriots would be in serious contention for the number 1 seed?
Yeah. Everyone gave him at least one more season.
Yep. But Belichick's going to Belichick.
Yeah. I mean, he got his defense back, and
he has an offense.
Yeah. And not a hot and cold Cam Newton offense.
Yeah. Speaking of hot cold,
the Eagles put on ice. They're replacing turkeys.
Yeah, what was that?
Jalen Hurts 3 interceptions, which the Giants defense is playing well, keeping them in the games.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing is if you can keep him from running and force him to have to pass, it's really easy to disrupt.
And it also seems like if you could defend Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
Because he's look 1 and 2.
A lot of people are able to do easily. It's literally the only time he's done well is when he's on my bench. Every time I've had him in.
The thing is, every time he does well, he goes off. Like, they score a lot of points and they just blow out whoever they're playing, like the Lions. And then Daniel Jones did just enough. Saquon was back. He didn't necessarily play well, but he was in it.
Which, speaking of Daniel Jones, he has a neck injury and is a question mark now. Let me see. Yeah, they're not sure what exactly it is and how serious it is, but right now he's questionable. So, especially with the Cowboys reeling, any shot the Giants had of like getting some momentum might have just died right there if they lose Jones too.
Yeah. I don't remember who their backup is, but I remember the first passing through was an interception this season.
Well, and I think I don't either, but I also don't think he's as good of a runner as Jones, and that's really what's been keeping. That's basically the only thing Jones has going for him. It's Mike Glennon.
Yep.
Mike Glennon is still going, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not realize that dude was 6'7". He's a giant of a quarterback.
Yeah, he looked pretty lanky back there.
And 6'7" to 225.
Oh, he looked lanky.
Speaking of guys that still going, Tannehill's starting to Tannehill again.
Hillard had a good game. 131 and a touchdown. Averaged 10.9 yards carry. So it's not like they didn't have a run game.
Yeah.
They just must have abandoned it. I mean, well, never mind. Foreman was the main back. He had 109.
Well, man, how is it you lose by only score 13 points when you have two running backs go for 270 total? How did that happen?
What I'm most impressed by is that the Patriots leaned more on Jones this game.
Yeah,
they didn't run it a whole lot. 310 and 2 touchdowns. I know Kendrick Bourne went off.
Which I was counting on Stevenson to get me points, and even though he paced their backs, he didn't do much.
Same.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to me because, again, everyone was like, oh, the Titans have this unlocked. They're just going to coast through, and then they've just really stumbled.
Nope. They have too many question marks on offense, mainly Tannehill and the running back position, which they run the offense through.
Yeah.
And then A.J. Brown is on IR. So they're hurting even more.
Honestly, surprisingly, I think their next game is going to be a really good test because if they can get their run game going with the guys they have a good shot of really still doing something in the playoffs. But if they can't repeat what they did this team, but also pass, they're going to plummet fast, I think.
Yeah. Oh, man. The Patriots are going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, they are. Those guys.
We'll see how that goes. I feel like they haven't really played anyone who challenges them for the most part.
Well, I mean, they got
Chargers.
Without getting too far, they have an interesting slate coming up. But so does their, main division opponent. So I'll be interested to see how those two, see the rest of the season out.
Yeah. I think those are going to be the make or breaks for the Colts and their Bills games, maybe the Dolphins.
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially since Buffalo has some pretty tough games, they could very easily take the first round, if not the first seed, because also even the Ravens have some tough matchups upcoming.
Yeah, the top of the AFC is pretty wide open.
Yeah.
Last I looked.
Yeah. Well, and even the NFC, it's not as wide open, but it's still fairly surprisingly competitive, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of competitive, Falcons, Jags.
Competitive. I feel bad for Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
I know he won, but I don't know. It's just top receiver Russell Gage, who's okay, and then just if they don't have Cordell Patterson, they don't have a run game.
Yeah. And if they don't have a run game, they don't have a passing game.
Yeah. Pitts has flashed and he looks good, but yeah, they're struggling on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. But Patterson went off. 100 rushing yards, only 2 catches for 27, but still, he did what they needed in the run game.
Yep.
I'm curious to see how things shake out for him next year, just because Ryan's got to be close to stepping away.
Yeah.
He's got to be. He's 36, and he just has not looked the same since that Super Bowl.
It's either he steps away, retires, or he goes somewhere else. Because he's at the age where, you want to win, and if you really want to win, you're probably not going to do it there.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to make it again, probably, while he's still in the league.
Yeah. Something entertaining would be seeing him go to Tennessee.
I could
swap Tannehill for Ryan, and
I could see that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Especially because play.
I think about it, because it's on paper he's a better passer than Tannehill, but at the same time, is he really?
As of late, yeah, that's a fair question.
But because it's also one of those, is Tannehill actually improved, or is it just he's in the right system? And could Ryan excel just as easily in that system?
That's true. Run first, I think he could.
Yeah. That would be, but would the Titans move on from Tannehill? That's the other thing I'd be curious to see. But I like the cut of your gym. That's an interesting hypothetical.
Yeah, I thought I'd get that out there. Get Ryan out of Atlanta, get him somewhere where he has a chance.
Yeah. He's at that point where he's like a Stafford or a Brady right now, where he's like, I just want to go and make one more run and just try to get that ring.
Even an odd one that got out there would be maybe a swap for Garoppolo for Ryan. So
that one, I think, would make a lot more sense, especially from the Niners' perspective.
You're going to play a little bit, but we're going to eventually switch over to the young guy, and you're going to mentor him. We might get that for you, though.
That would actually be really smart, because while Ryan is not the same Ryan he was, he probably would have a lot more to teach Lance than Garoppolo.
I think you would.
And I think let's say he still has to start for you. Your ceiling, I think, is still overall higher with him than it would be with Jimmy G. So that, I think, would be a good route to go. He'd be a really strong veteran to bring in to kind of coach up Lance for another year. But also, it's one of those. I think it'd have to be the backup next year, because at this point, I don't see how Lance isn't your starter next year. I really don't.
Same. I don't. But we'll see. Speaking of old men.
I mean, that game, I still maintain, came down to that punt, that whiffed punt. That is where the Colts lost the game.
Yeah, it was close, and in spite of Wentz, it was close.
He actually had a great game the first half.
Yeah, the 2 interceptions in the second, and then he still outscored Brady in fantasy. I know, because I have both, and I played Brady thinking, he'll come back, maybe. Really, I just didn't double check my lineup come Sunday morning. But Colts played Colts ball.
The two thing, and here's the other thing, it's the interception he threw in the second half. That was just a hell of a play by Winfield.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that. That was I can't really fault Wentz for that one. And the same thing with the fumble. That was just the Bucs defense doing what we've expected them to do finally. And that's, I feel bad for him, because he really didn't lose them that game. The dude was playing solid. The only one that was really on him was that game-ending interception. But again, that was like a Hail Mary, so not that surprising. Their defense was really struggling to stop them in the run, especially, and that's really where they were hurting.
Yeah, if you can't stop Indy's run, you're done. And I'm surprised they waited so long to run the ball. They literally waited until the second half to run the ball. And it's really, this is what you're best at. And people can run the ball against the Bucs. They just don't, assuming that they're just so good at it.
Yeah, well, I think it's either A, they were kind of trying, it was wasn't getting going, and they just abandoned it, full on abandoned it. Which, yeah, the first half they found success with passing, and they had some big plays. But it's one of those. I think they still should have tried to have the run more to eat more time off the clock in the first half. Just that way, it wasn't one of those. You still had it going. You could carry the momentum over.
Yeah.
And again, I still because that's really where the game turned, was when they recovered that fumble. That was really where the momentum totally shifted.
Yeah. I mean, there's always that point where just shifting going one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, it's basically that kind of. That's what put them to start playing behind. It was because they were already they were down by 2 points, or what was it, 4 points. But it was when they muffed the punt and they were able to go out and get a field goal and to make it so they needed a touchdown just to tie it. That's what it really started being like, okay, we're running out of time. They had to start scoring fast, and the defense was just too tired at that point to get stops. So not being able to get ahead with points, I think, is where they just went off the rails for them. But overall, it was still a good game.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was an early Sunday.
That was a good one. It also makes me wonder. It's the Bucs won. Yeah, the Colts are a good team, but it's the Colts are an inconsistent team. So what happens when the Bucs have to face an actually good team? Which, granted, right now, arguably everyone's inconsistent. So
yeah, but it's, I don't know. It feels like they've hit a point where Brady is like a double-edged sword for them now.
Mm.
If you protect him, he's going to make tons of plays, but as long as one dude gets pressure on him, he's going to fold.
Yep.
And then, they were able to rely on Fournette there, but you deal with a defense who can tackle the back.
Yeah.
You might be running into some trouble.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, not only that, it's like, if you really, take away Fournette, the only thing that really was consistent there in the past game was Gronk.
Yeah.
Which he's hard to defend for anyone. But also we saw Brady miss him a lot on what used to be automatic throws because people were just hurrying him, pressuring him was all they needed to throw off that rhythm. So I'll be curious to see how that pans out for him too, because I don't know, I'm still not sold on him. Everyone's all like, yeah, the Bucs are great, but they just have not looked like the same Bucs.
No, they haven't played that dominant ball.
Yeah.
I mean, they might this next week against the Falcons, but we'll see.
I mean, if they can't against the Falcons, then I'm definitely worried.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, their toughest game coming up is against the Bills.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of tough games, Jets-Texans. Which, I mean, the Texans destroyed the Titans a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago, so.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't run the ball very well.
Yeah.
That's probably what did them in here.
Yeah. Well, they had looks like 96 total yards rushing. And on top of that, the total, Tyrod had a very similar passing stat line to Wilson. The only difference is it looks like he was more efficient with his passes.
Yeah.
But that's not saying much. You don't want to have a similar stat line to Zach Wilson right now.
No. I'd say the best part of this game was that Zach Wilson interception.
I didn't watch it, but it makes me happy.
That's what YouTube's for. Throws it into the back.
Oh, that one, yeah. Oh, that's right, yes, because Mark Sanchez could finally be relieved that he does not have the worst turnover in franchise history for the Jets. Because butt fumble's bad. Passing it right into the back of your player and have it bounce into another player's hands. That's, I think, worse.
Yeah. It's a new level.
Yeah. Speaking of new levels, Broncos Chargers, man.
Yeah, Broncos
teams
pulling
are
off
just
a
hot
win.
gold.
Yeah. I was expecting more from the Chargers, but
Yeah.
I guess it is a division game. But on top of that, like, just looking at it, the run game is what the Broncos are all about right now.
Yeah, and that one, knowing that the Broncos totally shut down the Chargers run game. Eckler only had 12 for 31, averaging 2.6.
Yeah.
That's especially when
That's big.
Eckler was in the past game. Allen had 85. Herbert 3 for 303, but 2 interceptions with no run game. That's if you make the Chargers one dimensional, that's where they've really struggled.
Yeah. Herbert's going to make some mistakes, or at least give you 50-50 balls. Jay, that's what happened.
Yeah. And the Broncos have a shot at the playoffs.
Yeah.
I didn't think they would, but they do.
Once you realize that all the shit you used to care so much about
Let's see.
just keeps you a prisoner of your mind.
Speaking of shot at the playoffs, the Niners got a shot. That was, I think, a more costly game for the Vikings than the Niners, but
Not even close.
that was a costly game, injury-wise. Thankfully, you guys are only going to be down for like a game or two.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, unlike Cook, who's 2-week minimum with a dislocated shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, they put him on IR, so isn't that 3-week minimum?
Well, just from the injury, they said like absolute minimum he could return and be at least 2 weeks just recover from that. So probably 3 weeks is probably what they do. Even I'm not sure what the minimum is, but I imagine he'd be a 3-week recovery. But again, as I've said time and again, this is why I always pick up Madison when I can.
Yeah, I made a play for him in a couple spots.
Yep, I don't know how many times I repeat myself, but this is becoming far more and more common.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what it is. It feels like they just got into Cousins. I mean, I give you it's not the greatest.
I don't think that they got in Cousins. It's that Cousins wilts in the spotlight. He when there's pressure, he can that's not to say that he can't make throws and have a good game. It's the problem is it's when he really has to carry the team. That's when he wilts. Like, I mean, how many? There was that one play where he threw it at Jefferson's feet, and even Jefferson was just giving that look.
What was that?
What?
Yeah,
because he was open. He was wide open for a touchdown.
It seemed like he just felt like it's almost he gets a feeling like a phantom pressure after evading pressure.
Yeah.
Because he just evaded pressure, and that happened multiple times, even on like the 2-point conversion. Like he just evaded pressure, got outside the pocket, and then just hucked it.
Yeah,
he did that on multiple fourth downs too in the end zone.
He does that a lot. Like everyone talks about his stats, his efficiency, but the problem is for what he's paid, and especially for what his stats show he should be, he misses way too many wide open throws. Even when he has no pressure. Like there's been time where he has like clean pocket and he just chucks the ball way over the guy's head or at someone's feet. And you're like, how did you miss that guy? Especially when that guy is Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
You got to even remotely close their hands. They're going to get the ball.
Or throw it completely behind them and Thielen will still get it. Like on his touchdown throw.
That was...
Dude.
That was a catch.
Yeah. Even I sat there. It was like, it was a touchdown. Like, great. But that throw was so off target for a guy who was wide open.
Yep. Yep.
I'm just like, man, the Niners must have dodged a bullet.
Oh, you guys did. And again, this is why, I'm super pessimistic, but there's a reason. It's for the players they have, yeah, their offense is terrible. Like their offensive line is terrible, but their skill positions alone should be able to offset that. But they just don't.
I mean, on a positive note, though, the rest of your season honestly looks winnable.
It does, but I still don't think that means we get into the playoffs. It's winnable, but I still think they're going to struggle and lose enough games they miss it. Even with that extra team this year. But then also on top of that, it's one of those, again, I don't want to see them make to the playoffs just for a quick, first round bye, because this time they don't have the Saints to beat up on. It's the team needs to change, and if they keep on barely squeaking in, that's going to take a lot longer for them to move on from Zimmer, which they need to. It's clear he's not the guy.
And if that's the case, then ideally you might just drop most of those games up to come, because it's like you're playing the Bears, you're playing the Lions, you're playing the Steelers, and like honestly, they should be simple, easy games. You guys have the defense and the offense.
Except for the defense. I think the defense ranked like 28th out of 32 right now. Which, again, for your coach to have supposedly being a defensive guru, that's really bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, I don't know if that comes down to his play calling or...
I don't think it's one single thing. He's bad at adjustments. I mean, even like, what is it? He went into halftime with 3 timeouts when he had plenty of opportunity to try to leave some time on the board to at least try something. I mean, there's a reason to make that comment about like, oh, hey, that's one less timeout for him to mismanage.
Yep.
He's had his shot, and he's clearly not the guy. So I hope they finally realize that and move on. We'll see.
Yeah, that's we'll see. At least say the Niners are looking up.
Yeah.
Garoppolo flipped around pretty well after his interception. Apparently Shanahan had some words with him on the sideline. And he rose to the occasion. Middle looks really good, especially for a rookie. 133 and a touchdown. Like, dude was running all over. We'll get Debo back in at most 2 weeks. Ayuk stepping up. 3 receptions, 91 yards. Like, they didn't even abuse Kittle.
Yeah, well, and you guys didn't have to. Your run game was doing enough, and
yeah,
if your run game can keep doing that, you guys actually will, I think, make the playoffs. Especially with how mortal all the other teams have looked, especially in your division. Yeah. Right now, no one in your division, even while the Cardinals are leading, they still had some shaky games. Granted, injuries. But that still bodes well for your chances.
Yeah, I mean, it's not by any means going to be easy, at least every other week up until the end of the season. Bengals, Titans, Rams, down the stretch kind of thing. I think that'll tell a lot about how the offense defense are going to continue to play. Yeah. If the defense can stop mixing, then I'm going to have a lot of confidence. Yeah, they stopped Cook, but Cook also got injured in like the third quarter.
Yeah. So, the Bengals might not have a great offensive line. I guarantee you their low line is better than ours.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see how they perform there. And I think that's going to say a lot more than the coming weeks. But if they can control a game like they have been, then I got something to be optimistic about.
I mean, especially after watching what the Packers were able to do to the Rams. I mean, that right there gives you a really good shot to very least finish second in the division.
Yeah.
Which, that's still kind of baffling to me. I don't understand why they are struggling the way they are. And also, I don't understand how is Green Bay still doing what they're doing.
For Green Bay, like, you just have to pressure Stafford. They got enough pressure on Stafford to throw him off. He's also playing through a couple injuries, so I'm sure he's playing a little scared. And they're not making it easier on him. But it goes back to just multiple weeks previously. They're not committing to the run.
Yeah.
Without that commitment and taking the weight off Stafford, he threw for 300 yards and had 3 touchdowns.
Well, it's
asked way more of him.
I'm really surprised that. Oh, apparently Henderson has a quad injury. I'm surprised they didn't try to get another power back because they got Michelle, but losing Akers I think really seemed to have really derailed their season. It really has.
Yeah. I mean they came out strong, but they relied a lot on the passing game. With Cooper Kupp being a league leader in receiving.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have that complimentary running game, at least complimentary.
Something to keep them pressure. Honest.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the analysts even mentioned it. They're finesse team, they're pretty, but then when they play a team that's playing a little dirty, like run game, physical, they fold. And I mean, it wasn't like a beat down like when they played the Niners, but Packers did just enough.
Yeah. Speaking of doing just enough,
the Ravens did just enough.
They squeaked out a win. That's all I needed to do.
By 4 interceptions, which hurt me in fantasy.
That is really crazy that he had that many picks and they were still able to win. Granted, it was only 16 points, but still, that's. I'm curious how many times a team has won with their QB throwing 4 picks.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it because they never established the run. Cleveland didn't, and that's been where most of their points have come from. That's where their stability is. And Chubb had 8 attempts, Hunt had 7. So
yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I feel bad for the Browns. I really do. Because everyone was like, I think I'll always root for those franchises who've gone through just long stretch of futility. Is like,
rough years.
Yeah, and let's be honest, few teams outside of maybe the Lions or Bills can relate to the or at this point, a century of futility almost. It feels like.
Yeah.
And especially where this year really felt like it was their shot to really do something. That's, I think, the worst part. The Steelers were trending downward. The Ravens started shaky. I mean, the Bengals, they were trending upwards, but they still had some question marks. So this really felt like
young and
time to take it. Yeah.
Yeah. You have an established, labeled elite defense. You have a good quarterback, a solid receiving core, which, you lost Odell, but he didn't do anything. Honestly, he was a hindrance on that offense, I always thought.
And then you have a strong run game, too.
Yeah, you had one of the best running games, 1-2 punches in the league. And I say had because they got a show out still.
Well, and it's interesting. If you really look at their team, they are built like the Ravens teams that won Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's not working for them.
They could be missing a couple things, like the coaching, which in turn takes effect on the execution. Because, sometimes they get sloppy, especially, like Clowney. I think someone really needs to rein him in. Garrett seems like he's calmed down a bit. But as far as defense goes, it's like they would benefit from a very experienced coordinator. And then offense, they need to commit to that run. So that's been their bread and butter, but Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking about committing to run, Seahawks, man, that game.
It brought me joy. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, but Washington just really was trying hard to lose that at the end. They were.
Yeah, they were. It's like they gave him some hope, and they're like, "Oh, we gave him too much."
Well, and that's also it's been a while since I've seen a game where, like, because the Seahawks just could not get out of their own way with just stupid penalties. Like it's that onside kick one.
Oh, that was ridiculous.
Like I understand that's the rule, but come on,
Yeah, how do you not check your distance from the kicker?
right?
And be like, okay, oh, I need to step over. Guys, move over. Like,
I think the worst part about it is that the guy who was too close did, like, if he had been where he was supposed to, they still would have gotten it. That's the worst part about it for him.
Yeah. They even almost had the second one, but the ball took a different bounce.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, I'll give some credit. Like Wilson was playing better. 247, 2 touchdowns. The run game was non-existent, and Alex Collins even got injured too.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. For some reason, Metcalf was just silent.
And they didn't target him until pretty much the
second half.
Not even second half. I think
quarter, huh?
Yeah, it was basically fourth quarters when they finally targeted him.
Because I remember the announcers were talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, now they're throwing it to him."
Yeah, and that was one of those. And that was actually a few times like where it actually came out to bite him. Where like when they finally started passing to Metcalf, was a couple times where like actually no, there was someone else who was open. Like I think there was one pass where Lockett was wide open because there was a whole let's get Metcalf involved.
Mm-hmm. What's funny is they showed this a year ago. I want to say it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Metcalf is very expressive, and you can tell when he's supposed to get the ball. Because I think it was against the Niners, and they got an interception off of it. Because Metcalf was expressive, like down during the game, came out of the huddle, super cheery and like pumped. So they threw it to him, and he got intercepted. But yeah, I remember him saying that during the game. Like he kept missing like I want to say Disley underneath, like wide open guys. Yeah, but he was forcing it to Metcalf and like the guy downfield.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he was going for the home run, which I can understand why he'd be trying those. He was trying to get something going, but it's one of those. If he hadn't forced those balls, they probably would have won, honestly. Yeah. Because they kept on struggling to convert, and so many times they couldn't convert because they were trying to force the home run instead of just get the third down.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see Sunday against the Niners if he corrects that and does that, or if it's maybe a coaching thing. Because I'm sure this is the first time offensive coordinator, and I'm sure he wants to show off. I'm wondering if it was something he told him to do.
I mean, at the same time, you would think at this point, Wilson has enough trust that he, like, realistically, he's an Aaron Rodgers, a Manning, where it's like if he changes the play or does something, they're not gonna go after it. They're like, "Yep, okay, your call, sure, that's fair."
Yeah, so it should be.
Yeah, like so, I would have to think someone's got to be just Wilson. Either he's
wanting that momentum shift.
Yeah, he's still trying to do too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. And really, he shouldn't. He's injured.
Yeah,
he might be healthy on the fantasy board, but he's still hurting. They even said it in the middle of the game.
I understand why you're happy about CX, but at the same time, like, I'm sorry. I was really rooting for him after he made that touchdown at the end. So I'm like, this would be an amazing comeback if he could have pulled that off. And they came
just about
really close. Yeah. It also didn't help that literally I ended up losing because of that game because I had Wilson, but Matt had Washington defense and had Gibson.
Oh, yeah, and Gibson ran it 29 times.
But I still only lost by like 5 points. So if he had gotten that one more score, that would have been just
Yeah.
enough because it would have pushed
Yeah.
the defense down 3 more points.
Shout out doing just enough.
Right. Speaking of just
Next
enough,
week.
we got
Maybe the
just enough
Cowboys
time
will
to
do
next
just
week.
enough. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I like their odds better now that McCarthy's out.
I do too. Not just. I don't think McCarthy does much during the game. Like I
Yeah.
honestly don't. I think he just walks around the sidelines and it's like coordinating between
Mhm.
his coordinators, and that's it. Like I don't think he's really doing a whole lot anyway. But they're gonna have CD Lamb back at least, so at least him and Gallup will help that pass game. And then the Saints, they got Ingram back, but I think Kamara is still a question mark.
Yeah.
So-
I think the biggest thing for the Cowboys is how their line plays, missing your offensive line coach, your assistant offensive line coach, your strength and conditioning coach, and your right tackle. All due to COVID.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
going to have a lot of eyes on them.
I think if the Cowboys can squeak a win, which I'd say they're probably going to win, but they can squeak a win and come out healthy, massive win, and mostly Dak.
Yeah. I mean, they should be able to pull it off because the Saints are still. They're still relying on
Middling.
Simeon. They're still the Saints.
Especially that Camaro.
Yeah.
And Colts Texans, I just take the Colts.
Yeah. Oh, the Texans have their moments. I still think the Colts have the pieces they should just throttle.
Yeah, they're getting a little more consistent. Their defense is playing great. Yeah, as long as they get Taylor moving earlier, as opposed to how they did last week, I don't think it'll be an issue.
Yeah. I mean, the Vikings should be able to beat the Lions, but honestly, that'd be very much on brand for the Lions to get their only win against the Vikings.
I would be surprised. I'd be shocked if the Lions win. But yeah, I mean, I go for the Vikings on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I wouldn't find it all that weird just because they have, I mean, especially this season, there's been plenty of games where even not just on paper, they should have won handily. And it's like they have something like 10, I can't remember. It was one of those articles I saw earlier where their amount of games decided by one score
Oh yeah,
is
they were
one of the
saying it in the
highest
middle of the
amount
game.
we've seen since 2006, I think it is.
Yeah. No, they were saying that during the Niner game.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if I can find. I don't know if I can find it. But still, it's just they have had way, way too many games where it's like they have just been so close. Both win and lose. And they just can't. They just haven't been able to do it. Giants Dolphins. Assuming Dolphins, because if the Giants don't have Jones.
Yeah. I feel like even if they have Jones, the Dolphins' defense is good enough to kind of stifle him, and
That's fair.
the Dolphins' offense is playing well enough to put points on the board.
Yeah.
So as long as I think the turnover differential is going to be the major key point in that game, because if Tua can keep the ball safe versus throwing interceptions, because the Giants have been good so far on defense as far as getting turnovers, I think the Dolphins will win.
We'll win. I mean, I imagine we also feel similar to the next game where it's the Bucs should be running away with this because
it will say a lot because if the Bucs at this point in the season don't just dominate the Falcons,
yeah,
then we should be worried.
oh yeah, this should be just no problem for them. Well, not only that, also here's the other thing: if they don't, the Bucs are now in danger of moving down to as low as a 4 seed. The only thing they have going for them is doesn't look like anyone in the division is going to catch up with them.
Yeah.
So unless the Saints start going on a run, I don't see the Saints even. Actually, I wonder if it's even possible for the Saints to catch up to them. I mean, yeah, it's looking like.
But I mean, the Saints go on a tear. They could.
Yeah, they would have to go on a tear, but then the Bucks would also have to drop a few games.
Yeah.
Like basically, the Bucks would have to. Well, if I'm looking at this right, the playoff machine, the Bucks would have to, and this might be specific to certain games, but the Bucks would have to drop 3 games, and the Saints would have to win all the rest of their games just for them to finish with the same record. And I don't know the Bucks. I can see the Bucks dropping a game here or there, but I don't see them dropping 3 of the next 6.
I don't think they'll drop enough.
Yeah. Now here's a team who
dropping games.
Eagles, man. They could definitely drop some games.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Eagles can kind of get back on track.
I mean, they should be able to.
Not cold.
This is as close as it gets to a bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be able to win this one handedly.
Should.
Which I think also applies to the next game. The Cards should be able to win handedly against the Bears.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, let's see. I haven't seen any news as far as Kyler's injury, though.
I mean, but even with that injury, I think their defense is good enough that I don't see Andy Dalton doing much against it. And then on top of that, they still have enough offensive pieces that I still think that the Bears will struggle against them.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But, I mean, this season, weirder things have happened.
Yeah, and I mean, an interesting tidbit also came out about Kingsbury. They're saying he could leave for Oklahoma.
I would be very surprised.
I'd be surprised.
Like, it'd be one thing if they were middle of the pack or worse, but he's currently
starting to win.
Yeah. Not just starting, like, if they just keep playing how they are, they have the number 1 seed locked up.
Yeah.
And that's about... That would literally be like, yeah, I mean, we're 1 game from the Super Bowl, but I'd rather go to college. That's just... I don't see that happening.
I don't either. They start losing, maybe.
Yeah. But also, it's like, the other thing, it's like, if you have found success in the NFL, why would you suddenly jump ship to college? Because that's actually another thing of one of the reasons why he said he wouldn't want to go there, is he doesn't want to deal with recruiting. Which that is a big part of college. That is a big key part of college, and you don't have to deal with that in the NFL.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
From that perspective, I think it's easier in the NFL just because that is if you don't like recruiting, that is a really huge thing to deal with.
True. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Chargers and Bengals. We'll see if Chargers kind of get themselves righted.
It really depends on who shows up.
It's going to depend on who can stop the run.
Yeah.
And right now, my money is on the Bengals.
Yeah.
Just because of the struggles the Chargers had against the Steelers. And the Bengals slamming them down. It's kind of I feel an old school way of thinking as far as like who's going to win.
Yeah.
But
if they can stop Eckler. But at the same time, it's also one of those. The Chargers have enough firepower that even if they don't have the run game going, they still could conceivably keep up in a shootout if they can also shut down Mixon. If they can both like do it and turn into like a full-on, we got to just go touch for touchdown.
Yeah,
that's where I think it's interesting because I don't know who I'd pick in that instance. They both have enough firepower that could just be some crazy high scoring game. Yeah, honestly, to me, that one's. My gut says Bengals, but I don't know.
I'm rolling Bengals with you.
Yeah, like I'm like a 55-45 on that. Really, on that one, just because it's there's too many variables in there with the two teams. Which honestly, I feel the same way about this next one. Like on paper, the Rams should just run over the Jags, but
They haven't really been playing that well, but
no. And the Jags have a defense that could conceivably totally shut down the Rams.
I'm all for it.
I mean, yes,
yeah, for obvious reasons. But yeah, the Jags, I could see them completely contain the Rams' offense by just getting to Stafford. And then it's probably just going to come down to which defense makes a mistake.
Yeah.
Or which offense makes the bigger mistake. Maybe giving up points that way.
Well, and also, I'm curious. I have the playoff machine up here, so assuming certain teams win based on who we mentioned, so you definitely want to root for the Jags because just based off of if all the other games could have gone, you guys would jump to the 5th seed.
Yep.
Which
I understand.
Yeah, that could be big.
Yeah. To leapfrog them not only in the division but in the seeding playoffs.
Yeah. Well, then here's also another. Wow. So here, this is another game that actually has some huge implications.
Yeah.
Washington Raiders. So, assuming these
now
other games.
Both in the picture, yeah.
So
Washington has that 7th seed.
This actually affects 3 teams potentially if all the other games go the way we're thinking. So if Raiders win, then what happens is they get the 6th seed. Buffalo becomes the 7th seed, and then over in the NFC, you have the Niners and Rams, but then the Vikings become the 7th seed. However, if Washington wins, Buffs are 6th seed, Colts are 7th seed, Washington is also the 7th seed. So that game right there could have a huge impact on the playoff picture.
Yeah.
That wild card spot.
Especially if we stick with our previous Chargers-Bengals shot, because Bengals win, Chargers just drop it off.
Oh, man.
And then the Raiders move in.
If the Chargers win that Bengals game? Wow. So if Washington wins and the Chargers win that game instead, then instead of Bengals at 5th, Chargers go to 5th, Bengals 6th, Buffalo 7th, and Indy's out. Well, that's like right now the AFC is there's some 11 teams in the AFC are either at or one game behind 500, which is insane.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Let's see if I'm looking. Actually, yeah, Jacksonville and Jets. Oh, and Houston. Those are the only teams who aren't at least one game away from 500 in the AFC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Dolphins are 5-7, so they're a little off. But
again, if 5-7 is one game from 6-6.
Yeah.
So realistically, you can only really write off 3 teams in the AFC right now. And there's yeah. So okay, all right, let's go back to this. Who do you have? Washington Raiders.
I'm honestly not sure. They're both playing very similar ball.
Yeah.
I would lean Raiders, giving Carr the quarterback position an edge.
Yeah. Well, after this last weekend, I would lead them just because of what they did to the Cowboys. And yeah, the Cowboys are hurt, but it's still,
Good defense.
yeah, they blew up that defense. Whereas Washington had a close game against a really, really decimated Seahawks team. So, and then on top of that, they potentially lost their kicker.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah. Right after signing him.
Yeah. So I would lean Raiders, but it's also they have the defense that I could see them actually doing something, however. Next one though. I feel like the Ravens should win it handedly.
Should.
They
But
should.
they also should have beat the Browns the same way, so
That's true.
I feel like that's a little bit of a toss-up, but I would definitely edge the Ravens over the Steelers, especially with their damaged defense. The Steelers' damaged defense.
That is also another one of those big ones because if the Steelers win, the Patriots now become the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And the Bengals become the 2nd seed. And Baltimore drops all the way down to number 5. So that could be a huge drop for them.
Big game. We're getting into like these are big games coming, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and that is going to be really interesting from a fantasy perspective. Is that you have, I think you're going to have the most amount of teams still actually playing towards the end of the season. That it's going to be really hard in fantasy. But overall, I think it's great. This one again. This one seems like it should be easy to pick after this last weekend.
Yeah. I do the same. I lean course towards my team, given the record, given how they're both playing. At the same time, they're playing in Seattle. Wilson's starting to become Wilson, so it's going to depend if they can contain him, get pressure on him, because they don't really have a game, and if they can at least cover enough on the back end. I love that DeMarco isn't blitzing as much because he's giving his corners more help. So it'll be interesting. I do think the first half's going to set the tone for most of the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
Yeah, that it's I think a huge game, especially because it's you guys need to win this keep pace. This is
we have to keep winning.
Must-win game. Yeah. So it's one of those, and again, like you guys have been playing some good ball lately, but it's also there's still enough doubt. Yeah, it's where it's like, can you keep it up, especially in a division game like this, where who knows if the Seahawks get just enough people healthy. All it takes is a few plays. The next thing you know, they get Locker Metcalf going. That can start opening up something for whoever is the running back.
Yeah, whoever's running. Like Dallas, they don't use him enough. He's a good running back. He's fast. They just need to get him on the edge. But go Niners. But
I mean, I still think you guys win, but yeah.
I'm still gonna be sipping my drinks and
edge of your seat.
Yeah, basically. Don't get hurt.
Yep. So this is another one actually.
I think it's gonna be a good game.
Not only that, so again, if the Broncos pull this off, they go from being out of the playoffs to the 4th seed. And the Chiefs are now on the bubble.
See, it's probably going to come down, though, too, because Bridgewater got hurt in this last game, right?
I think so, but it's still one of those, they're not sure if it's serious and he'll miss time.
So I think if he is good enough.
But even with Bridgewater, the Broncos have been inconsistent.
Yeah, that's true. They're consistent revolving around the running game. So if the Chiefs can stop the run, they'll probably win. But that Chiefs defense is also hot and cold.
Yeah, but then again, like the Broncos have a pretty good defense, so they might be able to do enough to disrupt the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And if they can do just enough disrupt them while their run game gets going, they could take over the game. Now here, though, that Monday night game, that is a massive, massive game.
It's either gonna. So I see it going one of two ways: either a close game, the Bills can edge them out, or it might just go heavily in the Patriots' favor because they don't have to worry about a run game.
Yeah. Well, like again, if things go the way that we've guessed, that could be a 4-team shift in the playoff picture. Because the Patriots go from 2nd to 6th. Titans go up to 2nd seed. Bills 3rd. And then Raiders drop down to 7th. Yeah, that I think is easily probably the biggest game of the weekend. Just because of how big the implications are if either team wins.
Yeah. Good Monday night game.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing also. It's, how is Josh Allen going to handle a Monday night game against Belichick? Granted, it's at home, but still.
I think the against Belichick is the big question. He does seem to shine out really well in Monday nights and Sunday night games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a bigger question of what Belichick does against him.
Yeah. Either way, though, I'm excited because that's the only game I'll actually be around to watch.
Yeah.
We're getting close. We're getting really down to it.
6 more games. Technically, is it technically all teams are still in it? Mathematically?
I mean, okay, so like I said, if we're looking... Here, let me reset this so I can see where everyone's sitting. So right now, currently, you have Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Miami, Vegas, Denver, and Indy are all in the hunt in the AFC. So, okay, right now, currently, as of this weekend, Ravens 1, Patriots 2, Titans 3, Kansas 4, Bengals 5, Buffalo 6, Chargers 7. But you still have basically everyone but Jets, Jacksonville, and Houston are still 1 or 2 games away from 500, meaning they're still in the hunt right now, just because there's so many teams vying for those last spots. Like, I mean, let's see. The worst is Miami's 5-7, so they're only 2 games behind the Chargers, technically. So that tells you how close that's going to be.
Yeah, because it's just a couple games. It's literally just 2 games, like you say.
And not only that, it's like the Miami, they play the Giants, and then looks like they have a bye, which that actually makes things interesting. So if they're coming at Chargers could very well lose next week, and the Dolphins should win next week. And then the Chargers play the Giants, and the Dolphins have a bye. But then Dolphins play the Jets, and the Chargers play the Chiefs. So that very well could trend with Miami overtaking that spot. Then the NFC, though, it's still fairly close. Like, I mean, well, yes, Dallas is still leading their division. Realistically, Giants are only the ones that are really far behind if you're looking at that. But even then, the Giants aren't that far behind Philly and Washington.
No, they're really not.
And with the way Dallas is trending down, the fact that Washington is, as of right now, in the playoffs at 5-6 and Giants are 1 game behind. Obviously, that's not accounting for tiebreakers. And then, I mean, Seattle's the only one who's eliminated in the West. Detroit's obviously out. I mean, but then on top of that, it's like, really, even if you're looking at that, Minnesota, Atlanta, and the Saints all have a shot at that bye, at that 7th seed
Yeah.
as of right now, and even Chicago's only 1 game behind. So, yeah, like looking at, there's really only 3 teams in the AFC and NFC, but each that are essentially fully eliminated. Like they don't have a realistic path,
Yeah.
which is wild to me.
Normally by now, at least 1 to 2 teams, like mathematically, full on announced. Like,
yeah,
they're not making the playoffs. But they haven't even announced that the Lions have, been out. But I think everyone's just like, yeah, they're out.
I wonder if there is a scenario that the Lions could win. Let's see. Let's figure out this. So let's assume out of nowhere, Lions just go on a tear, win all their games. Next 6 games.
So technically they could, because it'd be a 6-win team, and if everyone else drops, they'd only be 5 and 4-win teams.
That would put them at 6-10-1.
But everyone else has to lose. But yeah, technically.
Well, hang on. So let's see. I'm going through and checking like what else would they need to go their way. If we're just looking, just assuming.
But nobody wins 6 games.
So I'm going through and I'm putting like as many of the NFC teams with a win, just so that, because that should give us an idea of where they're at, like how realistically how good of a shot they have. They would need. I mean, they man, even it's not realistic, but they look like they technically have a path. That is just insane to me. That even the Lions at 0-10-1 have a path to the playoffs right now.
You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, it's blown my mind. That straight up blows my mind.
Yeah. It's been a weird season so far.
Yeah. Well, it's like, was it for the first time since 2005, the underdogs have won like almost like 40% of their games? Over 40%.
Higher win rate.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I mentioned earlier, just full circle. NFL's promoting gambling for the first season ever, and the underdogs are starting to win.
I mean, if I were a conspiracy theorist, that combined with all the
something there,
especially, well, if you look at just how bad the officiating's been, and all the tic-tac calls, I mean, if I believe in conspiracy theories, that's got a lot of smoke there.
Good times.
Yeah. Man.
We made it.
Yeah. I think that's the fastest we've done one in a while.
Yeah. I think it was just, we didn't ramble as much.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get much sleep much. So trying to make sure I wasn't up too late, because...
That's smart.
Yeah, I only got like 3 hours of sleep last night. Oh boy.
Gross. Yeah. Yeah, no, you need sleep.
Yeah. Though on the bright side, there was a couple hours outside of her house at like 3:30 in the morning. That was cool, I guess.
That's kind of cool.
Not when you're trying to sleep, but it's cool nonetheless. Good time.
On the fire this off.
Hopefully next week we both have good news for our team.
Yes.
In my case, good news is that my team losing.
I mean, if you guys sneak back into that 7th seed, Niners go up to that 5th seed, be a great week.
Yeah, but then we might be stuck with Zimmer for another year. And I just don't want to
that's
suffer through another year Zimmer. Isn't 7
You
years
know-
enough?
If he drops that wild card game, that'll be enough. But you know what? It's been enough.
I mean, I'd like to think so, but I saw how long they put up with Childress and Ponder, even Singletary. So, yeah, I'm not so sure.
Fair enough.
But
Uh,
I think we should
Good
call it
times.
good
Yep,
times.
yep. Calling it a night. Everyone who's out there, have a good night.